Hello and welcome to part 4 of our continuing study of India's most beloved wisdom scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, here in the Eknath Easwaran translation, second edition, Nilgiri Press, 2007. Please get yourself a copy. It is, in my view, the best English translation available, with excellent introductory passages to each chapter and a really great introduction on the front of the whole book. Really a tour de force of wisdom about and of the Indian tradition. So we've worked our way in the previous videos through the first 9 chapters of this 18-chapter classic. And so I thought we would just pick up right where we left off. We got up to chapter 10. So here we are still basking in the teachings of Lord Krishna. And Krishna has made it clear by now that he is an avatar of Vishnu, not just a lowly chariot driver, not just the friend of our hero Arjuna. As he and Arjuna still are in the middle of that battlefield, before the battle, in that chariot, discussing how should I live my life? How should I take action in the field of action? And boy, it's been a real eye-opener so far regarding dharma or purpose, regarding karma yoga or selfless action, and regarding working without attachment to results. And as you would expect in any Hindu text, in any Vedanta text, there is, of course, a heavy dose of that non-duality, that idea that while Krishna, yes, is standing in front of Arjuna, he plainly says to Arjuna, once you understand that the sacred presence that I represent, that I represent in the world, is your essential essence too. Once you get that, you're free. And you can go about the actions that you must take in the field of action, and you are above the fray of craving and aversion. And in that realized state, there is everlasting joy and abiding peace. And that oneness will stay with you. And the good news is that's what we already are, only we don't know it. So we just have to realize it. Now, we're to a part in the Gita right now where Krishna, over the last few chapters, has been gradually sort of revealing more and more of his divine nature to Arjuna. And so for those Hindus or anyone who is most drawn to Hinduism as a devotional religion, these passages become hallowed scripture, where the full God nature of Krishna is about to be revealed in these next 2 chapters. So let's take a look at a few of the things that Krishna says in chapter 10, called Divine Splendor. He says to Arjuna, "Neither gods nor sages know my origin, for I am the source from which the gods and sages come." So now he's not talking just as Krishna, the avatar of Vishnu, nor is he just talking about himself as Vishnu. He's going up the ladder, talking about himself as the one which took form as Vishnu, etc., and down the emanation ladder it goes. So this beautiful passage here, verse 8 from chapter 10, Krishna says, "I am the source from which all creatures evolve. The wise remember this and worship me with loving devotion. Their thoughts are all absorbed in me, and all their vitality flows to me. Teaching one another, talking about me always, they are happy and fulfilled. To those steadfast in love and devotion, I give spiritual wisdom, so that they may come to me. Out of compassion, I destroy the darkness of their ignorance. From within them, I light the lamp of wisdom and dispel all darkness from their lives." What a beautiful devotional tone this is beginning to take, where Krishna is now speaking as you might imagine a God would speak in any religion. That what he most wants, what she most wants, is devotion, is love, is connection. And if you, in your heart center, break open and pour forth and be poured into by the God presence, that's it. That's all that's needed. So that is certainly a beautiful expression of the devotional energy of the approach to Krishna. And then he goes on for the rest of the chapter saying, all right, Arjuna, I will tell you of my divine powers. I will only mention the most glorious, for there is no end to them. And then I think the technical term would be a litany. It is then a litany of I am the best of all things. Among the shining gods, I am Vishnu. Among luminaries, among the stars, I am the sun. Etc. Among scriptures, I am the Samaveda. I'm just skipping down here. Among the Rudras, I am Shankara. Among the animals, I am the lion. Among birds, I am the eagle. Among purifying forces, I am the wind. Among warriors, I am Rama. There's Lord Rama back there. So among folk singers, I am Bob Dylan. Among rock bands, I am the Beatles. It's just name a category. I'm the top example in that category. So some of my students sometimes say, boy, he sounds kind of arrogant here. And I guess the witty retort to that is, well, it ain't bragging if it's true. And so if you are the be all and end all, then he's saying that. But it is clearly a calling card of Krishna's awesomeness. And that infinite, boundless glory that is God is starting to kind of come through the messaging here. Let's go to chapter 11. This one's called the Cosmic Vision. This is, I think, without a doubt, the most spectacular theophany in all scripture in the world. Theophany, a God reveal. Like in the book of Exodus in the Bible where God, in the form of a burning bush, calls Moses over out of the desert and speaks to God as a burning bush. That's a theophany where a God reveals itself in some form. Well, chapter 11 from the Bhagavad Gita is the big reveal. So Krishna says, behold, Arjuna, 1,000,000 divine forms with an infinite variety of color and shape. Behold the gods of the natural world, many more wonders never revealed before. Behold the entire cosmos turning within my body and the other things you desire to see. But these things cannot be seen with your physical eyes. Therefore, I give you spiritual vision to perceive my majestic power. He's going to show something to Arjuna so mind-blowingly awesome, it can't even be seen with eyes. So he has to give Arjuna the gift of mystical insight, mystical power, to then see Krishna's true form. And it's going to be exalting, horrific, inspiring, tear-inducing. It's every adjective, right? The biggest thing you can imagine. So the narrator of the story, who hasn't appeared since chapter 1, Sanjaya, even pops in here to say, yeah, having spoken these words, Krishna, the master of yoga, revealed to Arjuna his most exalted, lordly form. He appeared with an infinite number of faces ornamented by heavenly jewels, displaying unending miracles and the countless weapons of his power, clothed in celestial garments and covered with garlands, sweet-smelling with heavenly fragrances. He showed himself as the infinite Lord, the source of all wonders, whose face is everywhere. If 1,000 suns were to rise in the heavens at the same time, the blaze of their light would resemble the splendor of that supreme spirit. And so Arjuna just looks upon this with amazement, Sanjaya tells us. And then Arjuna begins to speak and sort of in praise, in recognition of what he has seen. And again, it's a bit of a litany chapter. There's a long list, and then Krishna goes on to say, I am time, the destroyer of all. I have come to consume the world. Even without your participation, all the warriors gathered here will die. So he talks about his association with Vishnu, who is associated with both the preservation of the cosmos and at the end of time, the end of the cosmos, the fire that will consume all forms. So Krishna is associating himself with that form of Vishnu, but then he connects it to the particulars of Arjuna's story, right? He's still living in that question. It's like, should I participate in this battle or not? And that's circling back around to what he said in chapter 2. Even without your participation, Arjuna, all the warriors gathered here will die. Kill those whom I have killed. Do not hesitate. Fight in this battle, and you will conquer your enemies. Those are hard words, and it's hard to sometimes reconcile how in a spiritual teaching the authorization of savage violence would be allowed. But these are the contradictions and paradoxes you find in a non-dualistic system, where all aspects of form coming into being and going out of being are celebrated, are acknowledged as facets of the one infinite diamond of divinity that is Brahmanatman. And if you want any of it, you must take all of it. So that is the cosmic vision. And Krishna, toward the end of this chapter 11, says, not by knowledge of the Vedas, nor sacrifice, nor charity, nor rituals, nor even by severe asceticism, has any other mortal seen what you have seen, O heroic Arjuna. We've just been given a very special, I know this word gets overused, but unique, meaning there's only one, unique look into the splendorous essential nature of transcendence. And we got to look over Arjuna's shoulder while he was granted this mystical vision. Krishna closes the chapter. It is extremely difficult to obtain the vision you have had. Even the gods long always to see me in this aspect. So we've just seen more than all of the gods have. It's a pretty incredible chapter. Let's go to chapter 12. It's a kind of a change in gears here. This is called the Way of Love. And so what's in play here, what's at stake here is Krishna teaching Arjuna really, again, I think the synthesis of love and wisdom, that the realization of wisdom and the experience of love end up meeting in these mystical experiences. Krishna says, yet hazardous and slow is the path to the unrevealed, difficult for physical creatures to tread. But they for whom I am the supreme goal, who do all work, renouncing self for me and meditating on me with single-hearted devotion, these I will swiftly rescue from the fragments cycle of birth and death, for their consciousness has entered into me. And then Krishna offers this curious kind of hierarchy. Watch what he does in this next passage. This is verse 8 of chapter 12. Still your mind in me, still your intellect in me, and without doubt you will be united with me forever. That sounds kind of like meditation, yeah? And then he says, if you cannot still your mind in me, learn to do so through the regular practice of meditation. So you can either do it sort of naturally or learn meditation and teach yourself how to do it, how to still your mind in me. And in verse 10 he says, if you lack the will for such self-discipline, engage yourself in my work, for selfless service can lead you at last to complete fulfillment Karma yoga, selfless service, as a fallback position for those too unfocused to learn how to meditate. And then in verse 11, he says, if you are unable to even do this, surrender yourself to me, disciplining yourself and renouncing the results of all your actions. A little bit of a kind of a, if that doesn't work, here's the backup plan. If that doesn't work, here's another backup plan. If that doesn't work. So what I love about the Gita, and one of its key core strengths, I think, is that it is a book for every kind of person, with every kind of temperament, with every kind of personality, with every kind of skill set, as we say these days. So we all are born with different aptitudes and different passions and different, I don't know, we love different things, different skills. So this is how we might come closer to that realization. So the next chapter, chapter 13, is called The Field and the Knower. And this is a short chapter that basically lays out one central image, the field and the knower. And when you think field, don't just think like cornfield or a vacant lot with weeds growing in it. Think, again, kind of like the perceptual field. You know, the world as revealed to us by our senses. That kind of field. And the knower. So those are the two things. So let's watch what he does. Krishna says, the body is called a field, Arjuna. The one who knows it is called the knower, capital K, the knower of the field. This is the knowledge of those who know. I am the knower of the field in everyone. So again, when you pull back, and as I said, when I teach meditation, I try to take this journey with everyone where we close our eyes and kind of retreat from the sensory realm, quiet ourselves, still our body, and begin practicing witnessing our thoughts as if they were clouds blowing across the sky, say, or leaves floating down a stream, just as a quick visualization, and then trying to go beyond that. And once you start to watch your own thoughts as they come and go with disinterest, with holy indifference, as he said in an earlier chapter, and shift into the inner witness, which in this chapter he's calling the knower, then you are slipping into identification with the Atman, with the Brahmanatman, which Krishna is before us now as an embodiment of. So that's the knower in the field. Listen and I will explain, Krishna says, the nature of the field and how change takes place within it. I will also describe the knower of the field and his power. The field, Arjuna, is made up of the following: the 5 areas of perception, the 5 elements, the 5 sense organs, and the 5 organs of action, and the 3 components of the mind and the undifferentiated energy from which all these evolved. So I'll spare you the whole flowchart schematic here, but notice the detail again with which this tradition analyzes and names the various energies of consciousness. And in this field arise desire and aversion, pleasure and pain, the body, intelligence, and the will. So all the things that you and I very well know as being human beings, that is the field. The field is all of these urges and my private ego and my perception and all the sensory objects around me. All of that is the field. And part of Prakriti, again, remember that term from before, which is the factory that builds all the forms out of the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So that is all the field that pours out of Purusha, or the sacred source. Purusha, resting in Prakriti, witnesses the play of the gunas born in Prakriti. But attachment to the gunas leads a person to be born for good or evil. So we're getting into some sort of metaphysical detail here about what the world of forms actually is and how we relate to it. Let me go to chapter 14. This is one of the more curious chapters. And some interpreters, I think, have rightly pointed out, this is the most Sankhya or Samkhya, spelled different ways sometimes, darshana perspective, or in plain English, more dualistic view. It's called the forces of evolution. So a little bit of detail about how reincarnation works, and about how what drives people to be reborn in certain ways. So, and of course it has to do with Prakriti. Listen to how Krishna talks here in verse 3. He says, my womb is Prakriti. In that I place the seed. Thus all created things are born. Everything born, Arjuna, comes from the womb of Prakriti, and I am the seed-giving Father. So he is Mother, Father, God. He is the womb, which he's also calling Prakriti, and he's also the seed-giving Father. And that's how all of this came about. And it is the three gunas born of Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, that bind the immortal Atman to the body, the immortal self to the body. Sattva, pure, luminous, and free from sorrow, binds us with attachment to happiness and wisdom. Rajas is passion arising from selfish desire and attachment. These bind the Atman, or self, with compulsive action. Tamas, born of ignorance, deludes all creatures through heedlessness, indolence, and sleep. So Sattva binds us to happiness, Rajas binds us to action, Tamas, distorting our understanding, binds us to delusion. So there's this three wavelength thing going on, three bands of energy that are, you might poetically say, vibrate at different vibrational levels. Sattva clearly preferred as the quote-unquote higher form of energy. Rajas kind of in the middle, and Tamas definitely looked down upon. You can feel it in the language here. So that is essentially what drives the force of evolution. If you can kind of grow your sattvic energy stronger, that bodes well for future incarnations. But if you sink down into the one below that, the Rajas, and you're basically motivated by selfishness, then yeah, you're going to need some more rebirths. And if worse still, if you sink all the way down into complete ignorance, complete unconsciousness, and just purely instinctual kind of crude behavior, the tamasic person, then yeah, you need a lot of work. And you're going to have to go through a lot of rebirths to get that all sorted. Now let's look at chapter 15. This is called the Supreme Self, the Supreme Atman. You know, it's fair to notice that we're kind of touching back on themes that we've certainly dealt with before in earlier chapters, but there's always some little fresh facet, some little fresh detail that you go, oh, I hadn't seen that idea before. Let me read you verse 7 from chapter 15. An eternal part, this is Krishna, of course, an eternal part of me enters into the world, assuming the powers of action and perception and a mind made of Prakriti. When the divine self, or Atman, enters and leaves a body, it takes these along as the wind carries a scent from place to place. Using the mind, ears, eyes, nose, and the senses of taste and touch, the self, or Atman, enjoys sense objects. Isn't that sweet that Atman still enjoys a good ice cream cone, a beautiful sunset, a gorgeous piece of music? That there is something about the way Brahman pours itself forth through Purusha, Prakriti, and the three gunas that is breathtakingly beautiful and deeply moving. It brings tears to your eyes. It's so beautiful. And to not be blind to that too, to not assume that the philosophic or spiritual or religious life is a one of struggle and austerity and the turning away from all beauty and pleasure. That extremism, that extremist asceticism is clearly frowned upon by the Gita, and that, again, too, makes it more of a book for regular people who enjoy having a nice pizza on Friday night and playing a game, you know, and dancing and etc. All the things that we like, that feel good, that taste good, that are beautiful. The Atman that is within us is enjoying the pizza too. Isn't that nice? I like that. That's really beautiful. Here, just another clue along the way here. I'm still in chapter 15, but verse 15. Entering into every heart, I give the power to remember and understand. It is I again who takes that power away. All the scriptures lead to me. I am their author and their wisdom. It's an all-inclusive spirituality that we find here in the Bhagavad Gita. I have no trouble at all, just on a personal aside here, I have no trouble at all reading the Bhagavad Gita right alongside the Jewish and Christian scriptures and the Quran and the Hadith of Muhammad and the Tao Te Ching and the Dhammapada of Buddhism and the Analects of Confucius and the Prose Edda of Icelandic mythology and I talk about a litany, right? I'll stop there, but you get my point. Or Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. The poetry of Hafiz. I guess I'm not stopping. So it seems to me that truth, whatever it is, Sanatana Dharma, the unborn, timeless truth, if it's in all of us, then it's going to break out of all of us. The most artful among us, the best writers and artists and so on, are going to be able to somehow give expression to this. And then little old you and I come along and we read these poems and these scriptures and we hear this music and we see this art and we're like, I am recognizing something right now. My own divinity is recognizing itself in the divinity of that. Not from an egoic, I am God thing. Ego disappears. There's just God apprehending God. Brahmanatman apprehending Brahmanatman. That's what causes you to fall silent when you lie on a blanket in the desert and look at the field of stars above you. There are no words. Silence is the only appropriate response. One last passage from chapter 15. In this world there are two orders of being, the perishable, separate creatures and the changeless spirit. But beyond these there is another. The supreme self, or Atman, the eternal Lord, who enters into the entire cosmos and supports it from within. So let's wrap up there, and we'll save the last 3 chapters for the next video, our final video here in our series on the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 16, 17, 18, coming right up. And chapter 18 is a big one. We need to save a little time for that one. Going to get into a lot of beautiful detail about the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and how they show up in the world and how we can recognize them, and more to the point, how we can recognize them in ourselves and perhaps even begin to awaken from our tamasic and rajasic impulses and nourish and feed gently our sattvic impulses, and then in the end transcend even those. More to come. See you in our last upcoming video in our series on the Bhagavad Gita. Namaste.